The day Ferrari revealed the Luce, the internet reacted like somebody had just unplugged life support from automotive culture. Forums exploded, YouTube thumbnails turned red, Ferrari fans stared at their screens in complete disbelief while typing essays in all caps about the death of the V12. Somewhere in the world, a middle-aged Ferrari collector probably put his espresso down dramatically and whispered, "It's over." Because for a lot of people, Ferrari going electric wasn't just a new car release. It felt personal. For decades, Ferrari wasn't simply a car company. Ferrari was noise, violence, emotion. The entire identity of the brand was built around engines that sounded less like machines and more like mechanical orchestras having a nervous breakdown at 9,000 RPM. Ferraris weren't quiet cars. Ferraris announced themselves before you even saw them. You heard them from streets away. You felt them in your chest. And now, Ferrari has unveiled the Luce, a fully electric luxury Grand Tourer that looks like it was designed by an Italian architect who exclusively drinks sparkling water and listens to ambient music. No V12, no screaming exhaust, no dramatic downshifts echoing through tunnels. Just silence. And the internet completely lost its mind. The reactions online were honestly fascinating because it exposed something deeper than people simply disliking a car. The Luce became this giant cultural argument between tradition and the future. The old-school Ferrari fans hated it almost instantly. Comment sections were brutal. People called it a Tesla wearing designer clothes. Others said it looked like an appliance instead of a Ferrari. Some fans claimed Ferrari had sold its soul to Silicon Valley. One guy on a forum literally wrote, "Enzo Ferrari is rotating in his grave at 12,000 RPM. Which honestly is kind of hilarious. But beneath all the memes and dramatic reactions, there was a real disappointment there. Ferrari fans weren't just upset because the Luce was electric. They were upset because it didn't feel emotionally familiar. And that's the key thing. Ferrari has spent nearly 80 years building one of the strongest emotional identities in automotive history. When people imagine Ferrari, they picture bright red supercars, Formula One heritage, naturally aspirated engines screaming through Italian mountain roads, and drivers pretending they're in a movie every time they hit the start button. The Luce completely disrupts that image. It doesn't even look traditionally Ferrari. Instead of aggressive vents and sharp race car styling, the Luce looks smooth, minimalist, futuristic. The influence of Jony Ive, the legendary former Apple designer involved in the project, is obvious everywhere. The surfaces are clean, the lines are soft, the entire thing feels calm and technologically elegant, rather than emotionally chaotic. And for many Ferrari fans, calm is basically a swear word. One of the biggest criticisms online was the front design. People said it looked too soft, too anonymous. Some compared it to a luxury crossover from the future, rather than an Italian exotic car. Others joked that it looked like Ferrari accidentally merged with Dyson. And honestly, some of the criticism is fair. If you removed the Ferrari badge and showed the Luce to somebody 5 years ago, there's a good chance they wouldn't immediately identify it as a Ferrari. That's a huge deal because Ferrari design has historically been iconic. Even non-car people recognize Ferraris instantly. The Luce changes that. Then came the sound controversy, or more accurately, the lack of sound. Because this is where Ferrari fans became truly heartbroken. The sound of a Ferrari engine is basically sacred in car culture. Ferrari V12s are legendary because they don't just sound loud, they sound emotional, mechanical, alive. It's part of what makes Ferrari different from almost every other car company. And now, the Luce arrives sounding like expensive electricity. That's obviously an exaggeration, but you understand the point. A lot of enthusiasts online argued that removing the engine noise removes the soul of the car itself. Some people even compared electric Ferraris to silent fireworks. Fast, technically impressive, but emotionally empty. One viral comment said, "Ferrari without engine sound is like a concert with no music." And honestly, that's hard to argue against emotionally. But then the tech crowd entered the conversation, and suddenly the internet became a battlefield. Because while traditional car enthusiasts were mourning the death of Ferrari culture, tech people were looking at the Luce like it was the beginning of a new era. Tech reviewers praised the minimalist interior design almost immediately. Unlike many EVs obsessed with giant touchscreens and futuristic gimmicks, Ferrari surprisingly kept physical controls and tactile switches. The Luce still feels mechanical inside, despite being electric. That detail mattered a lot, because one major criticism of modern EVs is that many feel emotionally sterile. Some electric cars are incredibly fast, but feel more like smartphones than machines. Ferrari clearly understood that danger, so the Luce was engineered to still feel dramatic and engaging. Even the cabin vibrations and driving sensations were reportedly designed to recreate emotional feedback normally created by combustion engines, which sounds ridiculous at first. But then you realize Ferrari is basically trying to solve the biggest problem in the entire EV industry. How do you make an electric car feel alive? And suddenly, the Luce becomes much more interesting. Because under all the controversy, the specs are actually insane. Over 1,000 horsepower, 4 electric motors, 0 to 62 miles per hour in around 2.5 seconds, top speed above 190 miles per hour. That is not normal human behavior for a 5-seat luxury Grand Tourer.
This thing moves like physics personally offended it. And unlike older Ferraris that sacrificed comfort for performance, the Luce is supposed to be genuinely practical too. Bigger interior, more luggage space, daily usability. Ferrari basically built a car you could drive comfortably every single day while still outrunning most supercars on Earth. That combination is incredibly important because the luxury market is changing fast. A lot of younger, wealthy buyers are less emotionally attached to gasoline engines than older enthusiasts are. They grew up around technology. Electric performance feels normal to them. For that audience, the Luce isn't ruining Ferrari. It's modernizing Ferrari. And that's where the debate gets really interesting. Because if you remove nostalgia from the equation for a second, Ferrari actually made a very smart business move. Look at the world right now. Luxury brands everywhere are transitioning toward electrification. Governments are tightening emissions regulations, cities are becoming stricter about combustion vehicles, technology companies are entering the automotive industry. The future is clearly moving electric, whether enthusiasts like it or not. Ferrari had 2 choices. Either adapt slowly and risk becoming irrelevant, or completely redefine what an electric luxury performance car could feel like. And Ferrari chose the risky option. That's why the Luce matters so much. This isn't Ferrari making a boring compliance EV to satisfy regulations. They could have done that easily. Instead, they built something radical enough to divide the entire internet. That takes confidence. Even some critics admitted that despite disliking the design, they respected Ferrari for not playing it safe. Because imagine the easier option here. Ferrari could have simply made an electric version of an existing supercar shape and called it innovation.
Instead, they built something entirely different, and that's honestly very Ferrari. People forget Ferrari has always upset purists eventually. When Ferrari introduced turbocharging into more road cars, fans complained. When Ferrari added hybrid technology, people complained. When Ferrari revealed the Purisanghe SUV, the internet acted like civilization was collapsing. And then the Purisanghe became wildly desirable. So there's a very real possibility the Luce follows the exact same pattern, especially because the luxury EV market still doesn't really have a true emotional flagship car yet. Tesla dominates technologically, but many enthusiasts still find Teslas emotionally cold. Other luxury EVs are fast, but most feel more focused on screens and software than passion. Ferrari might genuinely be the first company trying to build an electric car that feels theatrical and alive instead of purely efficient. And if they pull that off, the Luce could change the entire industry. That's the crazy part. The car everybody is currently mocking online could eventually become the blueprint for future luxury performance EVs. Because despite all the outrage, almost everybody agrees on one thing. The Luce does not feel lazy. It feels ambitious. And ambitious cars always create controversy at first.
The internet loves acting like every radical design is the end of a company. It happens constantly. People hated modern Lamborghinis when they first became more futuristic. People mocked the Cybertruck relentlessly before it became one of the most recognizable vehicles on Earth. Even Porsche faced backlash when it introduced the Cayenne SUV years ago. Now, Porsche SUVs practically print money. So maybe Ferrari understands something the internet doesn't yet.
Maybe they know younger luxury buyers care more about experience, design, and technology than preserving traditions from the 1990s. Or maybe Ferrari made the biggest mistake in modern automotive history. That's honestly what makes the Luce so fascinating. It feels like a gamble with unbelievably high stakes. Because Ferrari isn't just launching a car, they're testing whether emotion can survive electrification. And if the Luce succeeds, people might eventually look back at this moment the same way they look at other controversial turning points in automotive history. Not as the death of Ferrari, but as the beginning of a completely new chapter. Right now, the internet sees a silent Ferrari and panics. But 10 years from now, the Luce might end up being remembered as the car that dragged Ferrari into the future kicking and screaming, and somehow made the future feel exciting again.